Hello, welcome to Information Please, your Peoria Public Library on the air, bringing you information about your library and your community. I'm Roberta Koszelski, sitting in for your usual host, Tricia Nowak. Today our guest is Connie Voss, the Executive Director of Commonplace Family Learning Center. Welcome, Connie.
Morning, Roberta.
Today we're going to talk about a new program called Winter Read. And it's a new program, it has a new logo, there it is. Connie, we've had you on before, typically either as Executive Director of Commonplace to talk about what's exciting at Commonplace. Other times we've talked together on the show about Peoria Reads, our annual One City, One Book project. Now we have you on wearing a different hat, which you took off on the way in. You're a member of the steering committee, is that right? Of Peoria Community Against Violence, otherwise known as PCAV. So can you tell me what that is?
Sure, and I am still wearing the other two hats as well, but I'm speaking for PCAV this morning primarily.
Okay.
PCAV is a community group united in the cause of a safe community, and in particular, a community without violence. It just began earlier this year, and you mentioned there's a steering committee. There are 6 of us on the steering committee, and we're just to be a catalyst to help get things going. We are not all of PCAV by any means. It's a group of the community for the community, all with the purpose of a nonviolent community.
We've seen Peoria Community Against Violence out in the community. You had a number of walks.
Right, some peace walks in the fall,
summer,
yes.
And P-Town Soup.
Right, and there'll be another P-Town Soup in January.
Okay, so that's a little bit of context on Peoria Community Against Violence. Now, how did that begin, and what is the relationship between PCAV and Don't Shoot?
Don't Shoot. Well, Don't Shoot is the law enforcement arm of a strategy against gang violence and gun violence in particular. It's the focused deterrence strategy patterned after what some other cities in the United States have done. One of those cities is High Point, North Carolina, and we're patterning both PCAV and Don't Shoot quite a bit after what they've done in High Point. PCAV is not law enforcement, and we aren't literally part of Don't Shoot. We're another aspect. We're the community part. It's our role to promote nonviolence and get the word out that this community really doesn't want violence. And the members of PCAV have chosen really to even take a broader focus than the gang-related violence. We're concerned about all violence in the community. We've also taken a pretty preventative approach in approaching nonviolence. Things such as the peace walks are just to promote peace in the community. And then also some other things that are developing, some projects that are developing that are more preventive in nature than the after-the-fact kind of law enforcement thing.
I remember reading about the peace walks this fall and hearing at least one of them where while you were walking in neighborhoods, people would come out and wave from their doorsteps or even join in.
Which is sometimes too,
which is a great way to meet other people from, we live in this community together, and to meet them and have a conversation.
And sometimes we all sit in our own homes and think somebody should do something, or I'd like to do something if I knew how. So part of it is just saying, okay, let's get together. Let's get together on that, and we can do something.
So this Winter Read is a collaboration between Peoria Community Against Violence, PCAV, So how did the Winter Read idea come about?
Well, actually, somebody approached me as a committee member of PCAV, and because of the Peoria Reads connection, somebody from law enforcement actually, and said, you know, what if we had some kind of read during the winter, you know, when people have cabin fever and want something to do, and just something related to PCAV, and we didn't even exactly have a theme in mind, just something positive that supports what PCAV is doing, and just another way to get people together and maybe be on a common ground of some sort.
And that came from I'm not sure which year, was that 2012 when Peoria Reads did Don't Shoot?
Well, that was the original one, and then this idea came up again.
Yes,
like,
so.
you know, Peoria Reads has been involved before. You know, maybe people want something to do this winter. The idea kind of went from there, and I mentioned it to the Peoria Reads committee. At first thinking, well, I don't know, this might conflict with Peoria Reads, but it turns out it won't. People will find out. Peoria Reads is going to have a project later in the spring, so we don't want to mix up the two.
Right.
But the timing works quite well. Peoria Reads committee said, sure, that's a great idea, and we decided to all collaborate. It's a collaborative of PCAV, Peoria Reads, Peoria Public Library, working all together, doing a book project, a reading project.
And this will take place in primarily December and January.
Right. In December, we'll be getting the word out. Hope people will maybe get the books and start reading, or get them with their Christmas shopping money or gift cards or something, and then do some reading in January. At least that's the target, and we plan to have more than one book. We chose 3 books. People have choices. And then there will be a book discussion planned for each book. We also encourage, though, the community to get out and have their book clubs or their church group or other groups or your neighbors, friends, whoever, and discuss these books. It's not a real structured project. It's like, let's just read and get together on this.
Okay, well, let's get to the books.
Okay.
The first one is maybe a familiar title to viewers, The Other Wes Moore by Wes Moore.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about it and why it's familiar.
Yes, and actually, we chose the other 2 books first, and this one is one we're familiar with that just kind of fits right with it. Wes Moore, the author Wes Moore, grew up in an inner city neighborhood, kind of got off on track as a young person for a while, but eventually got his life together and has become very successful, a Rhodes Scholar. He works in the finance district in New York, a very accomplished person. And he found out that there is a Wes Moore, same name as his, from not very far from where he grew up under very similar circumstances. And his life had taken a different turn, and he was in prison for life. And the book, to me, shows just how thinly that separation line is between our path in life, and especially when you look at it going one direction versus the other direction. And that opportunities can sometimes make the difference in that. Wes Moore was just here in September for a United Way event. So even though Peoria Reads did his book 2 or 3 years ago, there's kind of a renewed interest, I think. Many people met Wes Moore at that time and read his book, so it seemed like a good tie-in with what we're doing to still bring it back and include it this year.
And yeah, it seemed like when we met him in September at the United Way kickoff, he was very interested in what Peoria was doing and was very complimentary toward Peoria for the different initiatives to try to keep kids out of trouble and work to eliminate perhaps the causes, what causes some of the problems to start. Because both Wes Moores, growing up in Baltimore, in poverty, the book shows the similarities between the two men and then points out the differences and just how a few bad choices left the other Westmore in jail for life.
Right.
And they did build up the correspondence and the relationship that led to the book. So, okay, well.
Yes, it's one of my personally favorite books, so I'm happy to have it included this year.
Yes. Okay, so then the second book, part of the winter read, is called Tattoos on the Heart by Gregory Boyle.
Yes.
What can you tell us about that?
Yes, and this is a book that was suggested to us and kind of ended up setting our theme for this winter read. Somebody who was reading it just said, hey, you've got to check out this book. It's a really good book. And it is a really good book. I now have read it. Tattoos on the Heart. Gregory Boyle is Father Gregory Boyle, a Jesuit priest in Los Angeles in one of the most severe gang neighborhoods in LA that has many challenges. 25 years ago, he started something called Homeboy Industries out of concern for the gang issues, but beyond the issues, for the people involved. One of the challenges that ex-offenders face is trying to get employment. So what he first did is start Homeboy Industries, starting with a bakery, where everything was run by ex-offenders. He had gang members from rival gangs under the same roof getting along. Might sound kind of surprising, but I know, for example, at Commonplace, we have a lot of people come in and we don't really know if they're gang relations or other such rivalries, but when people walk in the door, they're all the same, and things are peaceful. So it can be done, I know, and he's been proving it for 25 years. His book is full of little short stories about his time through the 25 years, and particularly about various individuals, and then his insights. So it's filled with the realities, but also it's the realities of gang life, but also a great deal of compassion, understanding, and hope.
The subtitle, The Power of Boundless Compassion.
I can't think of this book without the word compassion.
Yes. And it's not, the book is short stories. Each chapter is very short, and it makes the book very readable. There's a lot of death, of course. Even the guys, men and women who are trying to make it, sometimes, it's not successful, or the past still comes back. But Father Boyle has been pursuing this for 20, 25, 30 years. And and it's overall it's a very joyous, hopeful book.
It is. And I wrote down one quote that I wanted to share today. And actually, I don't know if he wrote this in the book. I read it in an interview, but it could be in the book too. I don't recall. But he said that he challenges the readers to stand in awe at what the poor have to carry, rather than stand in judgment at how they carry it.
Yes, yes.
Which, an illustration of the compassion, but very insightful remark as well.
And this book was reviewed in Publishers Weekly, which is a weekly periodical that most libraries subscribe to, that we read reviews of upcoming books and see what other professionals think of it. And this got a starred review when it was reviewed, and just a small fraction of the books that come out each week, well, first of all, make it into Publishers Weekly, and then get the special review that it's an essential purchase, for libraries.
Great.
So that's a kind of another reason that you should read it, besides us telling you it's a good book.
Yes. All three books are really acclaimed books, and that are well written and easy reads. Mm-hmm. Something they all have in common is they're true stories. Mm-hmm. So we're not talking about fiction, we're not talking about novels here, but they read as easily as a good novel.
Mm-hmm. And very much a book that fits that description that you just said is this one, Luis Rodriguez, It Calls You Back.
Yes, and Luis Rodriguez was involved in gangs as a young person, and has written a previous book about that. But this particular book, he wrote about his life after he decided at age 18 to lead the gang life, which was the only life he had known his whole 18 years up to that point. He goes through struggles. It's not an easy road. And he writes about his struggles, shares them with us, struggles with drugs, with finding employment, and he comes to grips with his own failures. That sounds kind of heavy, but at the same time, it's, in spite of all the struggles, it's a book that also is about love and revelations of healing as well. And it's been a very popular book, too. And Luis Rodriguez has gone on to become a journalist, an activist, a poet, and has found much success in his life now.
He's the Poet Laureate of Los Angeles, according to his website. And to keep up with the winter read, or to stay ahead of it, I wanted to make sure I had read these 3 books. And of course I had read the other Wes Moore when we did it as a Peoria Reads title, and I read Tattoos on the Heart a few months ago, and I got a copy of It Calls You Back, and I wanted to read it before today. And I started out slowly with it, other things to do, and I thought this past weekend, I set my own deadline. I've got to finish it, Saturday, Sunday. And getting into it, it was so good that no problem to just finish it in a couple of days. It's, writing has been a big part of his life. And, well, in fact, here's a quote that I found. And I think this was from his website. He really, his parents were poor, but they were, you know, he had 2 parents, and they were law-abiding, he describes them, and, you know, tried to give him and all of his siblings a good life. But he was one that kind of strayed at the age of 7, 9. He was getting into trouble already. And, but it says that Luis had a few saving graces. For one thing, he loved to read books. At age 10, a teacher read Charlotte's Web by E.B. White aloud in class, and he was hooked. Books are how he learned English, and even living on the streets, in the gang, or on drugs, he wandered into libraries as refuge. In books, his imagination was lit and his world broadened. Books did not dismiss or belittle him, beat or abandon him. I think you can see why I, as a librarian, why I wanted to read that.
Oh, yes.
And as commonplace, you know, where we're sharing books with anyone who comes in and
right.
helping them to discover the joy of reading.
Right, and it makes me think back to many years with Peoria Reads, too, when we've come across people who said similar things. Mm-hmm. Yeah, books can change lives.
Yes. And throughout the book, as I mentioned, writing, he wrote a lot of poetry that he kept just as a personal thing for many years. But then he got involved with other performance poets and was a leader, you know, and among them and helping them get published. And, you know, always reading, always promoting the written and spoken word. His subtitle of his books, I read a lot of nonfiction, and I think subtitles are very important. An Odyssey Through Love, Addiction, Revolutions, and Healing. And, you know, you don't just get out of the gang. You know, at the age of 18, he got out of jail, and he's, you know, that was his decision to turn his life around. And it's not a quick, easy fix, but he takes us through the failed marriages and relationships, and his kids, his 2 older kids, I think, right. Andrea and Romero, who unfortunately his son got involved early on in gangs and violence as well. And I won't tell you the whole story, but I just read this morning on the author's website that his son is now working in Chicago as a gang
Oh, really?
prevention.
I didn't know that.
Yes, I just I didn't. The book doesn't go quite that far,
Right.
even in the epilogue. But I read that this morning, and so his son Ramiro had a lot of the similar problems that the author had, because the author was not with him when he and his first wife divorced. They were separated, and he admits to not being the father he wanted to be. He didn't want his son and daughter to follow in his footsteps, but he didn't do a lot to make that happen. So, and his daughter pretty much did stay. She was very quiet and stayed on the straight and narrow, and was good in school. And they had disagreements too. This author talked a lot about his anger issues. How, as a teenager, an angry teen, how do you solve a problem when you get angry? It's through maybe physical actions or pick up your gun. And so all of these books are just well worth reading, I think. And
yes, I agree. And while they have very serious nature to them, at the same time they're full of, as we talked about, not only compassion but also hope. So I think they can offer hope to readers from all walks of life.
And understanding.
And understanding.
When you look at other members of our community who may or may not be struggling. Everyone struggles with something. And,
Right.
to kind of, it's important to read books about people who are not the same as you, who've grown up differently and have overcome or are trying to overcome. So, okay, so
Yes.
we've got 3 books, and we're calling it Winter Read. And what else is around to help these people who might want to have a discussion incorporated in their book discussion or
Okay,
put
well,
something
all
together?
of these books do have discussion questions available online. So there are materials, there are guides, and of course, all of us.
Yes.
As resources. Peoria Public Library is of course, always a wonderful resource.
I'm going to jump
Yes.
back to our logo. And on our website, you will see this Winter Read logo. And this is the place where you can find more information too. So if you're in a book club, or you want to even have a bunch of neighbors or your neighborhood association get together and talk a little bit about the book, but where do you start other than the question, did you like the book? Where there's questions on our website under Winter Read. We have links to discussion questions for each of the 3 books. And
Yes.
It's very easy to find author information and a little synopsis about the book as well. So we've got those guides on our website.
That's one of the good things about reading books that are well written and popular books.
Yes, you get those discussion guides that are ready-made. And then, excuse me, in January, I think you may have mentioned or not, that we will have some public discussions.
Right. There will be at least one public discussion, one on each book, each at a different location, so people can watch for information on that. Again, they can get that on the websites from the Peoria Public Library website. It will already be also be on the PCAV website, which is peoriacommunityagainstviolence.weebly.com.
Well, Connie.
So there'll be information there as well. Did I just take your next point?
No, you just,
Or didn't you
okay.
get that all down?
So, Peoria Community
Communi-
Against Violence.
Right, all spelled out.
Okay. And then you said dot.
Weebly, WEEBLY,
Okay.
.com.
.com. Okay, that's the Peoria Citizens Against Violence website,
Right.
which will have the information about the Winter Read as well.
Right.
And the Peoria Public Library website, which is peoriapubliclibrary.org, has the Winter Read information, the links to the discussion guides, And Peoria Public Library will be holding a discussion on each of the books in January as well, a public discussion. Locations to be announced. We're not sure if we're going to do all of them at one location on 3 different days, or if we're going to kind of rotate around the community and have one discussion on each book, and each one at a different location, just to give the community a chance to visit the neighborhoods.
And Peoria Public Library will have copies of the books, as well as, of course, online, local bookstores. They can be purchased.
Yes. We've got copies of all 3. You can call any of your locations. You can call me. My number is 497-2186 at the library to help you get a copy of the book to check out. And then, Connie, you're a contact for Peoria Citizens Against Violence.
You can reach me for information at 674-3315, extension 15, or just ask for Connie.
Yes, that's what I do. Okay. So let's just recap, not a lot of time. Winter Read is the December and January community reading program sponsored by Peoria Citizens Against Violence and Peoria Reads, Peoria Public Library, Commonplace. Just to, it's another way that PCAV wants to get our community thinking about each other and making ways to make the community a safer place, which we all want.
Exactly.
Okay, great. And so discussion guides on Peoria Public Library and PCAV websites, Peoria Citizens Against Violence.weebly.com. I will try that when I get back. PeoriaPublicLibrary.org is the library website. Please check us out. Visit your Peoria Public Library. Thank you. Thank you, Connie.
Thank you.
Good night.